still can't accept that he is dead.
Clearly it's upsetting, and I think it's only fair to say it's upsetting for me to actually have to tell them that in the first place.
He doesn't even know the person that he's killed.
The fear and the disbelief and the shock and just the horror of it all.
It's a horrible inquiry, a horrible attack. I'm sure we're going to get him.
The horrors of real-life investigations. Murder Squad starts Tuesday at 9 on HTV.
Tomorrow night, Stamp tries his best to persuade a fed-up prisoner to blow his chances of release. Drama in the Bill tomorrow at 8.
HTV Weather, sponsored by Stay Bright Windows. The clear choice in any weather.
Good evening. Well, it's nearly July and sadly the unsettled weather theme is set to continue. Let's hope it doesn't last until the 15th, St. Swithin's Day. Now we can see a mass of clouds stretching across Britain into Scandinavia and down into France and Central Europe, all associated with an area of low pressure currently centred over the North Sea. Now this low will stay near or over Britain for the rest of the week, giving us rather unsettled weather. For the UK tomorrow, much of Scotland and northern England will see outbreaks of rain with some heavy bursts as well. The rest of the country will have showers, heavy at times, and these may well merge to give some longer outbreaks of rain with a chance of some thundery outbreaks at times. Temperatures will be several degrees below the average for July, with brisk winds. Home to Wales, and it'll stay dull, breezy and generally cloudy this evening, with still some showers and outbreaks of rain around. Overnight here in Wales, there won't be a great deal of change, but the rain will ease off in many parts. The cloud and the breeze tonight will help to keep temperatures up, with lows expected of 9 to 12 degrees Celsius, 48 to 54 degrees Fahrenheit. And there could be a little mist in sheltered spots by dawn as well. And then a dull and rather cloudy start tomorrow with some early showers, especially in the north and the west, and still breezy. There won't be a great deal of change tomorrow afternoon either, just the odd brighter moment here and there. Also, the showers will be more frequent and more widespread. Having said that, some spots will be lucky and stay dry. Temperatures at best tomorrow afternoon, only 16 degrees Celsius, and it's going to be breezy as well. On Wednesday, the rain will be heavier and more widespread during the afternoon. Now, Thursday will be the same. Rain for most places, and there may be some thunder and heavy showers about as well. And it's much of a muchness for Friday as well, I'm afraid. Well, that's it for now. Do have a very good evening. I'll see you later. Bye-bye for now.
The HTV 7-day weather line, 0336 41 40 41.
The National News of Wales. Tonight with Nicola Heywood-Thomas and Hugh Weeks.
Good evening. The stories making the headlines in Wales tonight. Conservative protest at the Tory-free Welsh Grand Committee could force a change.
The couple's fighting for their sons in a battle with council officials.
And Welsh players, the pride of the Lions, but will the home cost rise? Labour have signalled an about-turn on refusing Tories seats on the Welsh Grand Committee. The olive branch follows a protest by Conservatives outside the group's first session in North Wales. Labour have also changed their mind on the way they finance key projects in Wales, which means good news for the A55 in Anglesey.
It was the first Welsh Grand Committee to be held outside London or Cardiff. It was the first to be bilingual, and it was also the first to be picketed by Tories. They're still angry about being kept out after Welsh Secretary Ron Davies's insistence that they should have had a shadow Welsh Secretary.
This committee today will turn into a sham because there is no real voice of the opposition in Wales being heard here today. The Conservatives got 100,000 more votes than the Liberal Democrats. They got almost twice as many votes as those who voted for Plaid Cymru.
They managed to win the support of at least one Labour MP.
But clearly it must be right to have some representatives of a party, of a political party that got 20% of the votes here in the Principality.
And it now looks as if Ron Davies might relent if the Tories offer the shadow cabinet minister responsible for Wales, Michael Ancram.
In other words, if we were offered the pianist and not the page turner, which I understand who is outside today gnashing his teeth because he can't get in, would the government then perhaps take a different view?
If I receive a representation from the Conservative Party that is their wish, well, obviously I will consider it. But I don't want to make any further comment than that.
On the devolution issue, one pro-Assembly Labour MP reminded Mr Davies of the new tolerance promised by Tony Blair.
I will say this too, that the member for Grant, who is not in his place now, should be given the freedom, alongside our other backbench colleagues, to speak their minds, for or against.
But Plaid Cymru's president, speaking in Welsh, wondered whether Labour could deliver.
The Labour government has been elected on a definite pledge to the people of Wales, and we're now looking to see whether they're going to redeem their promise.
Had there been any Conservatives in the committee, they would no doubt have welcomed Ron Davies's conversion to the private finance initiative principle. Mr Davies told the committee that public-private partnerships will be used for hospitals and schools, the Cardiff Bay development and the completion of the A55 dual carriageway to Holyhead.
In a landmark case at the High Court, North Wales police are being accused of breaching human rights after they made the convictions of 2 paedophiles public. The man and woman, who can't be named for legal reasons, claim the move caused them to be hounded from their home. Judges heard it was the 4th property they'd been forced out of since leaving prison last July.
The decision by North Wales Police, based here in Colwyn Bay, to tell the owner of a caravan site where the couple were living about their convictions was unjustifiable, unreasonable and unlawful, the High Court's been told. Their lawyer told judges he didn't dispute head teachers had a right to be informed about their convictions, but to tell caravan site owners had been exercising a power the police did not possess. Their lawyers also argued that apart from leaking press reports of their convictions for rape and sex abuse, the police took no other steps to prevent a possible repetition of their crimes. Officers were guilty of the not in my backyard syndrome. The pair's lawyers admitted their crimes were horrendous, but argued that not enough effort was made to help them find alternative accommodation, and getting them moved on was even more dangerous because they then lost contact with them. The man convicted for raping a 16-year-old girl and his wife who helped him have since set up home in a lay-by. They're still in the North Wales area. The legal team acting for North Wales Police stressed the only motive behind the police action was the prevention of crime and protection of children. North Wales Police aren't the only force to venture into a legal minefield of identifying a convicted sex offender. Last year, detectives sparked controversy by naming a dangerous paedophile seen here in the Caerphilly area. It's hoped this hearing will finally clarify in the law the conflict between a parent's right to know and a paedophile's right to privacy.
The families of 2 young men with severe disabilities are to take legal action against Flintshire Social Services. They accuse the council of bureaucratic delays in providing care. A bungalow specially designed for the men has been standing empty for 8 months.
Tucked away in a quiet cul-de-sac at Kiowish near Holywell, this £80,000 bungalow has been specially built by a housing association to provide a home for Jamie Godfrey and Matthew Youd, who suffer from epilepsy and severe learning difficulties. But although it was completed last November, their families still don't know when the youngsters will be moving in to receive the 24-hour care that's been promised under a pioneering scheme funded by Flintshire County Council and the Clwyd Community Health Trust. Both authorities have yet to finalise a legal agreement over who pays for what. The parents claim the hold-up is all due to red tape.
It's very, very stressful on both families, and on myself and my wife and my daughter who lives at home. It's more stressful to the fact that in last year we were promised that the boys would be in the house by November, and literally since November we've been on promises, broken promises all that time, and that has added to the stress.
It's these people in high places. I mean, I'm only a mother after all, and I look after them, and I'm fighting for everything for Matthew. I always have done. But for people, they don't even understand what you have to do for Matthew. I mean, he's a baby in a man's body. You try and look after a man with a mind like Matthew, it's not an easy thing, and I don't think they want to know.
Flintshire Social Services say there have been problems over government curbs on spending, but they're giving the matter top priority, and lawyers are meeting tomorrow to finalise a financial agreement with the Health Trust. Tonight, both families are hoping the next time Jamie and Matthew visit their new home, they won't be left on the doorstep.
A petition with 12,000 names has failed to stop the closure of Bargoed fire station in the Rhymney Valley. Members of South Wales Fire Authority have agreed on the plan, subject to consultation with the public. Protesters who lobby the meeting claim cover will be dangerously reduced.
A busload of protesters made the journey from Bargoed to the Fire Authority headquarters at Pontyclun. They were hoping for a change of heart by authority members who want to close Bargoed fire station and transfer some staff to nearby Kevin Forest. Campaigners packed the meeting to hear an assurance from fire chiefs that the shake-up will not reduce cover and will improve it for most people. This is disputed by the crews themselves in Bargoed.
If you double the station area, reduce the cover by 2 fire appliances, I just don't see how that's possible. He's made a situation where he's relying on half the number of men to deal with twice the number of calls.
On Friday, Welsh Secretary Ron Davies, who's the local MP, handed in a protest petition with 12,000 signatures. But at today's meeting, the authority decided the plan should go forward to public consultation. The campaigners say it'll put lives at risk.
He is asking for another blinder. It's inevitable it's going to happen, and we're not sitting back and seeing that happen. It's got to be put a stop to. He cannot make adequate cover with 2 machines instead of 4. It's impossible.
But the chief fire officer says there's an over-provision of cover in Bargoed compared with other South Wales towns.
Yes, there are people going to be waiting 3 or 4 minutes longer on the west side and north side of Bargoed and so on. But they are still going to get a level of service which we provide to the vast majority of people in other areas and is within the standards.
A final decision is expected in the autumn.
More of today's news now, and Welsh Secretary Ron Davies will decide himself whether a controversial open-cast mining scheme can go ahead at Talawine near Pontypool. He's called in the application by developers. They want to mine for coal before reclaiming the 500-acre former clay colliery site. Local people say there'll be too much noise and disruption.
The Tory leader William Hague is to marry his Welsh fiancée Ffion Jenkins at the House of Commons on December the 19th. The marriage vows will be read in both Welsh and English. A family party will be held in Wales a day after the London ceremony.
The Welsh skydiver who fell 5,000 feet and lived could leave hospital in America as early as Wednesday. Gareth Griffiths was on holiday in Florida when he made the ill-fated tandem jump. The instructor he was strapped to died on impact.
The man serving 3 life sentences for raping and murdering 7-year-old Sophie Hook is to appeal against his conviction. Howard Hughes was jailed in July last year for killing Sophie and dumping her body in the sea at Llandudno.
The trial judge described Hughes as a fiend and recommended that he should never ever be released from prison. But next month, Hughes will ask the High Court in London to overturn his conviction. It's almost a year since he was jailed for murdering 7-year-old Sophie. She'd been in Llandudno celebrating her cousin's 9th birthday. After a party and a barbecue in the back garden, the children camped out overnight in a tent, but the next morning Sophie was gone. Her body was dumped in the sea. She'd been raped, then strangled. The key to the trial was Hughes's confession to his father in a police cell. "I did it, Dad," he'd said. The judge, Mr. Justice Curtis, ruled that admissible evidence despite protests from Hughes's lawyers. They will argue at the High Court next month that the jury shouldn't have been told of the confession. The hearing is scheduled for July the 25th, 5 days before the 2nd anniversary of Sophie's death.
The Ministry of Defence is suing an aerial photography firm for £7.5 million after a fatal air crash in mid-Wales. 2 pilots died when an RAF Jaguar collided with a Cessna light aircraft working for the photography company in 1991. The MOD claims the company was negligent.
A simple memorial to the 2 pilots who died, erected by villagers, serves as a reminder of the mid-air tragedy almost 6 years ago. For people living in Carno, the memories are still vivid. Debris from the wrecked aircraft crashed terrifyingly close to houses, and amazingly no one on the ground was injured. Not surprisingly though, villagers remain apprehensive about continued low flying above their homes.
With the area now, the villagers are a little bit uptight about the low flying, which is only fair. but on average, they tolerate it more than accept it.
An inquest in Carno after the accident heard that it was caused by the Cessna, which had been flying too low, taking aerial photographs. But campaigners against low flying by RAF jets fear that rural communities in Wales are too often at risk from the threat of disaster.
Well, over the last 20 years, it has had a tremendous effect on the quality of life of people that live in rural areas. It has an effect on especially on small children and the elderly, and also, as we all know, the effect it has on the animals.
The aerial photography company at the centre of the MOD action is Leeds-based Skyview and General. Today, company directors declined to comment, but it's understood they will contest the writ.
You're watching Wales Tonight. Coming up after the break, new contracts from S4C, why some programme makers are unhappy.
Family win right to the headstone of their choice on man's grave.
And could the Lions' success cost Wales its star players?
So how did it all go? I'm afraid the board rejected your big idea. What do you mean? Calm down, John. They didn't like your idea. Better luck next time, mate. Something I said.
Thanks to its torsion beam suspension, the Rover 200 is the perfect car to unwind in.
I've had a better idea.
Before you let just anyone get their hands on your investments, find out who pays you interest from day one. Plain sailing investments from Cheltenham and Gloucester. We're run to make you richer.
Welcome back. There's disappointment tonight among many of Wales's independent television producers. While more than 30 companies, including HTV, have been successful in bidding for commissions from the Welsh fourth channel S4C, around 20 have gained little or no work. Today's announcement heralds a big expansion in Welsh language programming, thanks to the arrival of digital broadcasting.
HTV's award-winning Welsh language current affairs programme, Abida Bedwar, The World on 4, was one of today's winners in the S4C commissioning race. The Welsh Fourth Channel today announced that 34 independent producers have won contracts to provide Welsh language programmes. But out of the 60 who submitted proposals, getting on for half have been unsuccessful. The Producers Association says it's disappointed, especially for companies in North Wales.
Well, I'm certain there will be people who will sleep very uneasy this evening. You know, we temper our concerns really with a bit of joy, because certainly a lot of our companies have been successful. On the other hand, I think we are going to be losing from the television scene in Wales a number of very experienced and very accomplished TV producers.
S4C currently transmits 33 hours a week in Welsh, but with the introduction of a terrestrial digital channel next year, this will virtually treble to 90 hours. But as S4C isn't spending much more on programming, doesn't this mean the digital channel will merely screen repeats or low-budget productions?
Well, certainly the cost of the programmes during the daytime will be lower than the programmes in peak, but that's the case on all television channels. And I think it's the same challenge that others have faced when they've gone into daytime programming for the first time. What we're going to have here is, for the first time, a full Welsh language television channel.
But what Wales independent producers discovered today is that while the number of channels may be growing rapidly, the money needed to make programmes for them isn't rising at anything like the same rate.
Insurance claims from Welsh farms and homes in the countryside have increased by an unprecedented 70%. Nearly £8 million was paid out by one insurer alone in Wales last year.
It's a scenario which is all too familiar across the Welsh countryside. All-terrain bikes worth thousands of pounds are often left for a few moments while their owners attend to jobs around the farm. They can be stolen within seconds. They're one reason why Welsh claims for rural theft made to the NFU Mutual rose by more than 70% last year. That compares with just 30% in the West Midlands, a minuscule 3% as the national average, and a 25% reduction in Scotland. Around Wales, that means some 5,000 claims last year to this one insurance firm alone.
The increase of over 70% is in the actual amounts lost or stolen. It doesn't necessarily mean there has been that percentage increase in the number of thefts, but perhaps thieves are now targeting perhaps more expensive items.
Much of the increase is attributable to thefts from country homes, but a quick survey of roads around Carmarthenshire this afternoon showed plenty of opportunities for opportunist thieves. Ironically, the number of thefts across Mid and West Wales has seen a dramatic decrease in recent years, thanks in part to Farm Watch initiatives and police campaigns against travelling criminals.
The public in this particular area are much more aware, far more aware than they ever were. Certainly up to about 7 years ago. They are more likely to report matters to the police, and the police will then act on the information received.
And that alertness has led to a crime success story, with greater care being taken of property and a greater chance of thieves being caught.
The grieving family of a man who was killed 18 months ago have won their battle to mark his grave with the headstone of their choice. The church in Wales had told the family that white marble was not allowed in the graveyard because it weathers badly.
Joanna Roberts led her family to the church appeal hearing in Criccieth, determined to continue in her battle for the right to erect a white marble headstone on her son Tommy's grave. He was killed outside a nightclub 18 months ago, and until now his final resting place near Porthmadog has been marked only with a simple wooden cross. This is because the church refused to allow the family to use a white marble memorial. They said it's against the rules. But now, after long discussions, the church has relented. So unless any other objectors come forward, Mrs. Roberts is now as close as she's ever been to getting her final wish for her son.
Just wait for 6 weeks for an appeal, just in case somebody's got any objections to us having this white marble. I just hope and pray that they'll have heart and say we can have it.
The appeal ruled that on balance the exceptional circumstances of the case outweighed the objections.
I think the family are returning home a bit happier, and that this will sort of deal in some way with the bereavement and the tragic circumstances that they've endeavoured.
People living in flats in Cardiff city centre say noise from the demolition of the National Stadium is making their lives unbearable. Some live just metres away from scaffolding on the Arms Park. Now they're demanding action.
They're in one of Cardiff's prime locations, but they're just metres away from the Old North Stand. Inside, the demolition work is well underway, but people living in the flat say the noise is unbearable. From 8 a.m. until 6 p.m, 6 days a week. Now they've had enough. So they've organised a petition calling for something to be done.
Each day it's getting worse and worse. It was really pretty awful now, as you can hear yourself. And it stops you going out in your rooms or anything like that. I just really want to go out all the time.
They've not even started on the main demolition behind us. All that they're doing at the moment is simply clearing out a shell. When they start to attack the concrete structure, I think that's going to be very, very alarming.
We had a meeting with the gentleman who's in charge of the whole operation about 2 or 3 months ago. But since then, we've heard nothing. We haven't had any communications. They drop us in a letter now and again, but it doesn't actually say whether they're going to do anything for us, or they're not even acknowledging that we got a problem here.
With the work due to last 2 years, they want changes now and have threatened to take further action. But the stadium today said they have monitoring equipment at the flats and the noise levels have not exceeded the limits set down in their planning agreement.
Well, on the field, 2 more Welshmen are being tipped to join Neil Jenkins and Scott Gibbs in the final British Lions test against South Africa on Saturday. Barry Williams could replace injured Irish hooker Keith Wood, and Alan Bateman could be named as centre if Jerry Guscott moves to the wing to replace the injured Alan Tate.
There may only have been 2 Welshmen in the side, but they both played immense parts. Jenkins, inevitably, with his superb goal-kicking. 15 vital points for him from 5 kicks, while the South Africans were missing all 6 of their attempts. And as in the first test, GIBBS was devastating with his tackling. Hit after hit on opponents who hardly seemed to know what was happening to them. One charging run incredibly left 20-stone prop Durant flat on his back. Their performances leave GIBBS and Jenkins as prime targets for rich English or foreign clubs, according to leading former Welsh stars.
When you've got someone who can kick the ball like Neil in the team, he's worth his weight in gold, and maybe 15 of us. You know, we're all pleased that he's part of the team, and his contribution, apart from kicking, is superb.
They are 2 players who could easily consider themselves good enough to be in a New Zealand team. That's the level they're playing, and that's the biggest compliment that I could pay Neil Jenkins and Scott GIBBS.
To play the way they played means that now they'll be for sale throughout the world, and it's whether or not Welsh rugby can keep them.
Clearly, you know, every player who performs at this level now are in danger of being snapped up in this way by having contracts with English clubs. No other country involves itself in quite the same way in offering such high sums for players.
After all is said and done, like most sportsmen, you have a short career and you have to make out of it what you can whilst you can. And these 2 boys might just have that opportunity of being megastars now in a very short sporting life history.
On to cricket, and Glamorgan are tonight celebrating victories which leave them 3rd in the Championship and 4th in the Sunday League. Although for captain Matthew Maynard, there's still plenty of work to do.
As local school children made the most of the Sophia Gardens facilities for the day and emulated their Glamorgan heroes, county captain Matthew Maynard was putting in the hard graft which he insists he needs in order to keep up with the county's rising young guns. But after his contribution to yesterday's Sunday League demolition of Sussex, which included 3 wickets in only 8 balls, and of course not forgetting his career best figures in this week's stunning county championship win, it was possibly the fastest and wiliest gun of them all who drew the headlines. With Gloucestershire next up, Captain Maynard certainly glad to have Waka Eunice on his side.
Very much so. We're, you know, obviously talking. Someone like that is just a menace in the opposition dressing room, you know. Oh, Waka's, and he's got 7 for, and then he's got 8 for, you know. So against Gloucester, it's, you know, there'll be a buzz in their dressing room. A bit of afraid, yeah. What our buzz in our dressing rooms full of anticipation and can't wait to get out there.
Yes, Gloucestershire will certainly have taken note of last week's performance, especially since their match 2 is at St Helens. But despite all the talk of Glamorgan's first championship since 1969, Maynard and his men definitely aren't getting carried away.
It's nice to be up there amongst the leaders, but it's still, you know, ambition to come in the top 6. We should do that now, and then if you get on a run at the right time, who knows? But we've just got to concentrate on what we're doing, and if we carry on doing what we're doing and doing it well, we'll be up there and thereabouts by the end of the season.
Let's hope so. We'll now a last look at tonight's main headlines with Glyn Rosser. Labour look set to make a U-turn on excluding the Tories from the Welsh Grand Committee.
In a hearing at the High Court, 2 paedophiles have accused North Wales Police of breaching human rights. The test case comes after their convictions were made public.
The families of 2 disabled men are taking legal action against Flintshire Council after the pair couldn't move into a newly converted home.
And finally, what's blue and travels at 200 miles an hour? The answer is the latest version of that record-breaking car, the Bluebird.
Well, the original, of course, topped 180 miles an hour on Pendine Sands in West Wales 70 years ago. The new model will make another attempt in September.
It was here on Pendine Sands in the 1920s that Sir Malcolm Campbell made history in the Bluebird. He set the world land speed record for an electric vehicle at 183 miles an hour. The new version is modelled on the second Bluebird driven by Donald Campbell, who also held the land speed record. He died 30 years ago trying to break the water speed record at Lake Coniston. After an official unveiling in London earlier this month, Bluebird The Next Generation has finally arrived for its first glimpse of the sacred Pendine Sands. It's taken 6 years of hard work to get here, and although it's not quite finished, it's hoped that in September, with Donald Campbell's nephew at the wheel, the new, bluer, sleeker version will be able to smash the record.
The ambition is 200.
a world record is important. If we get 185 on the day, then I will not be upset.
This is the latest chapter in the ongoing Bluebird Campbell saga. For Don Wales and the team who've built the Bluebird Electric, the dream of a world record may soon become a reality. You can catch up with their progress in the Endeavour series on July the 17th here on HTV.
Well, as long as he remembers the highway code, I'm sure he can't go wrong. What was it? Mirror signal manoeuvre, I think.
Yes, at the speed he's going, I don't think he'll be able to think about that. We'll be back tomorrow at the same time. Join us then if you can. Till then, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
The last governor is leaving, China is reclaiming Britain's last major outpost. As the colonial sun sets in one of the world's most vibrant, prosperous cities, what will the new era of Chinese rule bring? Join me, Trevor McDonald, to say farewell to Hong Kong.
Tuesday at 10:40 on HTV.
3 more contestants try to spin their way to a fortune next on The Wheel.